Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we are plunging into a really fascinating world where sound waves aren't just, for listening, but are actually engineered tools for your mind. We're diving into this project called Clarity Drift by TATANKA.
Yeah, and we've been digging through quite a bit of material on this one, everything from like the technical specs of the sound itself to the science behind it, the role of AI, which is pretty surprising,
Right.
and even a really, really moving personal story connected to it all. It's quite a stack.
It really is. And our mission, I guess, in this deep dive is to sort of pull out the key takeaways from all these sources. We want to understand what clarity drift actually is, how it's supposedly designed to, influence your state of mind, the way AI was involved, which sounds really innovative, and, well, what this might signal for the future.
Yeah.
Wellness, creativity, maybe even community through sound.
Yeah, definitely. Get ready for some interesting bits, maybe some aha
Yeah.
moments about how something like sound waves can be, well, a pretty powerful tool.
Okay, let's explore what the sources are telling us.
Let's do it.
So first things first, what is this thing? Clarity drift.
Yeah.
It sounds big.
Oh, it's massive, yeah. The description is 9 hours, 18 minutes, and 25 seconds. So a full journey, an ambient journey.
Wow.
And it's not just random noise. Its stated purpose is pretty specific.
Yeah.
It's engineered for, like, optimal cognitive, emotional, and creative support.
Okay.
The idea is it helps you get into and stay in those deep states, focus, flow, calm, that sort of thing.
Okay, so functional sound, basically.
Yeah.
And the sources say it blends a few different styles. I remember seeing, like, dark ambient.
That's right, dark ambient textures, yeah. But also hints of lo-fi and jazz kind of woven in. And then underneath it all, there's this subtle layer that's really crucial, binaural beats.
Right, the binaural beats.
Yeah.
Which brings us straight to the science bit, doesn't it? This idea of brain entrainment.
Exactly. And it sounds maybe a bit out there, but it's actually an auditory phenomenon, something your brain creates.
And you absolutely need headphones for this to work, but that's what the sources emphasized.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, absolutely essential. See, binaural beats are basically an illusion your brain conjures up. You play two slightly different pure tones, one frequency in your left ear, a slightly different one in your right ear,
Yeah.
and your brain perceives a third beat, a kind of rhythmic pulse. And that perceived beat's frequency is simply the difference between the two original frequencies.
Got it. So it's not actually in the recording, it's happening in your head.
Precisely. And for clarity drift, they're very specific about the frequencies used. It's 528 hertz in the left ear and 538 hertz in the right.
Okay, so the difference there is 10 hertz.
Exactly. Your brain perceives a 10 hertz beat. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because 10 hertz, that frequency falls smack dab in the middle of the alpha range of brain waves.
Ah, the alpha range. Okay, what does that signify? What's the connection there?
Well, alpha waves are pretty strongly associated with some really desirable states, especially for focus and creativity. We're talking like enhanced concentration, mental clarity, that feeling of relaxed alertness you might get in meditation.
Right, that calm focus.
Yeah, exactly. And creative flow, that effortless state.
Yeah.
So by embedding this 10 hertz beat, the soundscape is, gently nudging your brain towards operating in that alpha state.
And the 528 hertz tone itself, the one of the left ear that's got its own buzz around it too, doesn't it? Something about solfeggio frequencies.
It does, yeah. 528 hertz is one of the solfeggio frequencies. And it's often linked, anecdotally and in some alternative circles, with qualities like clarity, emotional balance, transformation, even focus. So you might have this combined effect, the brainwave entrainment from the 10 hertz beat, and maybe some subtle resonance from the 528 hertz frequency itself.
And the way they integrated these tones sounds really careful, almost surgical. The sources mentioned them being embedded really quietly, like negative 24 dB gain, and filtered, a low-pass filter at 200 hertz. Why do that? What's the thinking there?
That seems to be a really key design choice. By making them so quiet, almost subliminal at negative 24 dB, and filtering out the higher, more noticeable frequencies with that low-pass filter, they become less consciously perceived. They influence you without grabbing your attention, without becoming a distraction. The idea is to support your internal state without pulling you out of it.
I see. So it works beneath the surface?
Kind of, yeah. And of course, that hard left-right panning is absolutely vital. You need the separate frequencies in each ear to create the binaural effect in the brain.
So it's a very deliberate application of brainwave entrainment, this
Yeah.
idea of using external rhythms to influence your brain's own rhythms.
Exactly that. And, brainwave entrainment itself isn't some brand new discovery. It's been
Yeah.
explored in clinical settings, meditation practices for a while now.
Right.
But what seems different here with TATANKA is packaging it within this really accessible, long-form, and frankly, quite engaging ambient sound design.
So it's crossing boundaries then. It's art, it's music, but it's also kind of a neuro tool.
That's a great way to put it. A blend of art and utility.
And the accessibility seems important too. Basically, anyone with a decent pair of headphones could potentially tap into these benefits.
Seems to be the idea. It lowers the barrier to entry for potentially using sound to help regulate your state, find focus, or just calm down.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. We've talked about what it is, the science behind it. But how on earth do you actually create something like this? A 9-hour, 221-track functional soundscape. That's where the AI comes in, isn't
It
it?
is, and yeah, this is where the sources suggest the project gets really fascinating from a creative process perspective. It wasn't just a human sitting there composing for months.
Right.
No, it's framed as a deep collaboration, human and AI working together.
What kind of AI? What tools are we talking about?
The sources lists quite a few. Things like ChatGPT, Meta.ai, probably for ideation or structuring, but also audio-specific AI tools like refusion.com, Summoner.com.
Okay.
Plus standard audio software like Audacity. And apparently it was all running on Ubuntu Linux, which is interesting.
So the AI wasn't just like cleaning up tracks or something simple. What was its actual role?
This is the key insight from the materials. The AI was apparently acting more like a partner. It was involved in co-composing, layering sounds, applying filters, even remixing sections.
Wow, co-composing.
Yeah. It essentially extended the artist's reach and capabilities. It allowed for blending these complex elements, the dark ambient, the jazz hints, natural textures in ways that might be incredibly time-consuming or even technically difficult to achieve traditionally.
So the AI wasn't just a tool, it was more like another musician in the virtual room.
Yeah.
Or a very creative assistant producer.
That's a really good analogy. It sounds like it allowed for rapid iteration, trying out ideas quickly, and helping to shape these really responsive, nuanced sonic environments. And the sources frame this not as AI replacing human creativity, but expanding it, augmenting it.
And what does that imply for creativity moving forward, do you think, based on this example?
Well, it definitely suggests a future where making music, or any art perhaps, could be much more of a fluid dialogue between human artists and AI systems.
Interesting.
And maybe, just maybe, it could democratize things a bit, giving powerful creative tools to people who don't have years of formal music training, for instance. AI as co-producer, mentor, muse, even a mirror.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so let's put clarity drift into a slightly wider context. The sources talk about it being part of an emerging genre.
That's right. They position it within what they call therapeutic ambient music.
Therapeutic ambient music. What defines that genre, according to the sources?
It seems to be music that's intentionally designed using specific principles, things like potentially healing frequencies, minimalist aesthetics, neuroacoustic ideas like the binaural beats we discussed, all specifically aimed at supporting well-being.
So it's got a clear function beyond just listening pleasure.
Exactly. It's not just background mood music. It's presented as foreground utility, but disguised as a soundscape. It's built with a purpose in mind.
And why is this kind of intentional sound apparently becoming more relevant right now? What's the need?
Well, think about the world we live in, right? Hyper-connected, constantly bombarded with information, digital noise, distractions everywhere.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Mental fatigue, feeling overwhelmed. It's pretty common. So the idea is that intentional sound like clarity drift offers a kind of counterbalance, a deliberate way to create internal space, find some quiet, and restore a sense of balance.
How does it differ then from just putting on, say, your favorite pop playlist, or even just listening to white noise, which some people use for focus?
Good question. Regular music, especially pop, often demands your attention, right? It pulls your focus outward. Lyrics, catchy melodies. White noise can be effective for masking external sounds, sure, but it can also feel kind of sterile, maybe isolating. Therapeutic ambient, as described here, aims for something different. It's designed to gently recede into the background, allowing your focus to turn inward.
So it supports rather than distracts.
Precisely. It's intended as a supportive companion, not a performer demanding the spotlight.
And the sources listed a whole bunch of potential uses, didn't they? Highlighting how versatile it's meant to be.
Absolutely. Everything from, deep, focused work sessions, creative tasks like writing or coding, meditation, studying,
Okay.
even providing a calming atmosphere in therapeutic settings, like for therapists or bodywork practitioners, or just winding down in the evening, maybe even prepping for lucid dreaming. It's designed to sort of mold to the listener's needs.
There was that Eckhart Tolle quote mentioned in the sources that felt really relevant here. Something about inner noise and inner stillness.
Yeah, that was powerful. The equivalent of external noise is the inner noise of thinking. The equivalent of external silence is inner stillness. It really frames this kind of soundscape as a tool designed specifically to help quiet that inner chatter, that inner noise, to make space for stillness.
It really connects the dots.
It does. It suggests it's about more than just brainwave entrainment. It's also about creating alignment, maybe providing some kind of energetic support. These projects, like Clarity Drift, are presented almost as acts of service, offering practical, daily tools for building resilience in our noisy world.
Okay, so we've covered the tech, the science, the genre. But the sources also share this really personal, quite poignant story about someone named Mara Asmara. And that really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? It shows the human impact.
It absolutely does. Mar's story, it brings the whole project down to earth in a really profound way. The description of her background is complex: an Afro-Yemeni refugee, experiences in Marseille, Rio, she's trans, deeply connected to her faith.
Wow.
And her story is one of searching for quiet, for peace, amidst a lot of external noise, but also significant internal struggle related to identity and belonging.
And she tried other things, meditation, other sounds. But Clarity Drift hit differently for her.
That's what she described. She said it wasn't silence she found, but an embrace. The 528 hertz tone felt like a mother tongue returning. The lo-fi elements apparently helped transmute difficult memories into something warmer, like nostalgia. The jazz reminded her of her father.
That's incredible detail.
Yeah, and she described the 10 hertz beat, the alpha wave frequency, as feeling like a lighthouse guiding her thoughts. But maybe the most crucial part was that she felt the soundscape created a space where she could just exist, without having to perform or compartmentalize her complex identity. Her different facets weren't problems to be solved, but like chords to be harmonized within the sound.
That idea she expressed, that clarity didn't come as some big answer, but as permission to be fully. That's incredibly powerful. That goes so far beyond just helping someone focus on work.
It really does. It speaks to a much deeper level of healing and self-acceptance. And apparently this profound personal experience with Clarity Drift led her to connect with TATANKA and get involved with something called the Orchestra Americana.
Orchestra Americana. Okay, what's that about?
The sources describe it as this virtual collective. It brings together marginalized musicians and AI co-creators from all over the globe.
Virtual?
Yeah. And the idea is to provide tools, including AI tools like the ones used for Clarity Drift, plus human mentorship, and crucially, a supportive community. Specifically for people from diverse backgrounds, maybe those who haven't had access to traditional music education or industry pathways.
So it's taking the technology and the philosophy behind Clarity Drift and actively using it to empower voices that are often excluded or unheard in mainstream creative spaces.
That seems to be exactly the mission, and Mara's journey within this Orchestra Americana is presented as an example of that vision in action. She started creating her own compositions described as things like sacred jazz lullabies, ambient prayers, finding collaborators she called kin, and starting to share her own unique sound with the world, facilitated by this community and these tools.
There were a couple of quotes from her story that really seemed to capture this bigger picture. Something about healing.
Yes, this one. Healing doesn't always come in loud revolutions. Sometimes it's found in subtle frequencies and shared resonance.
Subtle frequencies and shared resonance.
And then there was that powerful affirmation, you are already the signal, you are already the sound. It positions her, and perhaps anyone listening, not as someone needing fixing, but as inherently whole.
That's beautiful. So her story just transforms the understanding of the project. It's not just functional sound for productivity. It's deeply connected to healing, self-discovery, empowerment, and building real, inclusive community through resonance.
Precisely. It adds this whole crucial layer of human meaning and purpose.
Okay, so if we try to tie all these different threads together, the science of sound, the AI collaboration, the therapeutic art form, Mara's story, the community aspect. The sources label this whole movement as the quiet revolution of intentional sound.
Yeah, and that feels quite fitting, doesn't it? Clarity drift seems to act almost like a gateway, an entry point into understanding how sound, when crafted with intention, can be this potent force for healing, for focusing the mind, for transforming our inner state.
By weaving together all these elements, science, tech, art, and human experience.
Exactly. And interestingly, the sources even brought in some quotes from Sitting Bull about interconnectedness, about respecting the right of all beings to simply exist.
How did they connect that?
It seemed to frame this whole endeavor creating intentional soundscapes, building communities like Orchestra Americana within a broader, almost spiritual philosophy of seeking harmony, balance, and belonging. Not just for the individual, but collectively.
So it connects individual focus to a wider sense of place and connection.
Right. It suggests that in this era that often feels so loud, so fragmented, so disconnected, both externally and internally turning towards intentional sound, can be a source of profound strength, a way to consciously cultivate a different kind of space within the soundscape of your own mind and maybe connect with others doing the same.
Okay, this has been a really rich exploration, a true deep dive. Let's try to wrap it up, bring it to a close.
Sure. So we've seen how this project, Clarity Drift by TATANKA, really skillfully combines some specific scientific ideas like those binaural beats targeting the alpha brainwave state, the specific 528 hertz frequency, with pretty advanced AI creative tools acting almost as co-composers, and this overall philosophy of therapeutic ambient sound design.
Yeah, and the outcome is this meticulously engineered, very long functional soundscape that's explicitly aimed at helping you, the listener, enhance focus, find that flow state, and cultivate a sense of inner calm.
But crucially, we also saw how the impact and the intention go way beyond just the sound file itself. Through things like the Orchestra Americana community, and especially through deeply personal stories like Mara Asmera's,
Right.
it becomes clear that this is also about creating tangible spaces for healing, for authentic self-expression, for finding a sense of belonging, particularly, it seems, for voices and experiences that have often been pushed to the margins.
It really is a powerful example, isn't it? How technology, our scientific understanding, and artistic expression can actually converge, not just for entertainment, but to actively support our inner lives, offering genuinely new tools for resilience against all the noise of modern life.
Yeah, it definitely challenges us to think about sound differently, not just as something passive that we hear, but as an active force we can engage with for personal growth, for focus, for healing, for connection.
Which really leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over. If sound can be engineered with such precision and intention to help us find inner stillness, enhance our minds, and even connect us more deeply, what other unseen forces, maybe other frequencies or energies in our world, are just waiting to be understood, harnessed, and maybe used for healing, creativity, and profound connection in ways we haven't even imagined yet?